When I first opened the box of this Altra Olympus 5 running shoe, I was a bit shocked. I always thought that Altra was more of a minimalist running shoe brand with a zero drop, wide toe box and overall quite flexible. And the Olympus 5 does not look like it fits that category. But I ran 20 marathons in 20 different countries with it in just 2 months. And now I get it. So let's get into it. So compared to Altra's most popular trail running shoe, the Altra Lone Peaks, the Olympus 5 has a bit more grip, a bit more cushion, a bit more tech and a bit more weight. This leads to a lower minimal index. The Olympus 5 has a minimal index of about 4.4 out of 10, while the Lone Peak has a minimal index of about 5.8. Now, what is a minimal index? Minimal index is a continuum from 1 to 10 in which you can place all the running shoes in the world according to how minimal or maximal a given shoe is. The more minimal the shoe is, the higher the index. For example, the Altra Escalante Racer, which is the most minimal shoe on the Altra line, has a minimal index of about 7, which is quite high. While a shoe like the Via Olympus, you can already see much more stack height, much more sturdy and unflexible, has a minimal index of about 4. Now, why is that important? The more minimal the shoe is, the more stress will be induced on your calves and Achilles tendon while you run. And the more maximal the shoe is, the more this stress is relocated to your knees, hips and lower back. So according to where you have pain and where you have weaknesses in your body, you can choose a shoe that will play in your favor instead of just choosing any shoe that looks good. Now, knowing that, who did Altra make the Olympus 5 for? So in my opinion, there are 2 types of runners who can really benefit from a shoe like this. First are runners who are transitioning to more minimal shoes. So if you are currently running in more maximal shoes like Hoka's or New Balance and you want to transition to a shoe that's a bit more minimal like the Altra Lone Peaks, then I highly recommend that you choose a shoe that's between both of those minimal indexes. Okay, so if you're running in a shoe that has a minimal index of 4 and you want to transition to something like the Lone Peak, which has a minimal index of 6, then I really recommend you take something that is between 4 and 5 to transition to those Lone Peaks. This will allow your body to slowly get accustomed to a higher minimal index without increasing the risk of injury too much. The second type of runner I really recommend this shoe for are people who are increasing their running volume or intensity by a lot and want to reduce the risk of injury. So this is me, okay? The beginning of this video was not a joke. I actually reached out to Altra because I was training for a big project called Run for Europe, where I was going to run 24 marathons in 24 countries in 2 months. And I was starting to have pain in my Achilles tendon and my plantar fascia. Okay, and so I reached out to Altra saying, I love their shoes, I've been running in their shoes for years, but I have these little pains there, what do they recommend? And they told me I should go with the Olympus 5 for trails and the Via Olympus for road. And I ran almost all of my marathons with this shoe. Okay, it's the one in orange that I teared up after 1,000 kilometers, but I got another pair because I really enjoyed it. So for example, if you're training for an ultra marathon or a trail marathon and just are increasing your volume by a lot, maybe you're training for a PB in a marathon and yeah, you're increasing volume intensity, but you want to reduce the risk of injury as much as possible, maybe it's a good idea to go with a shoe that's a bit more maximal. Don't change everything. Don't go from a zero drop Torin from Altra to something like an ASICS, changing the drop, changing the technology in the shoe, etc., because your body will have to get accustomed to these changes. And so the more your body has to get used to changes, the more you increase the risk of injury. Okay, so just going slightly up. This still has a zero drop, even if it doesn't look like it, because it has this outsole that kind of wraps around the heel box here, but it is a zero drop. It's still very wide for your toes, so you still have all these things about Altra that we love, but it's a bit heavier. It's much more sturdy. You can see the heel cup is very big. You really sit in this shoe very well. You can see the outsole is huge, and this will give you, you know, a little bit of a rocker in the midsole, so very responsive and more stability. So if you're training for an ultra trail, increasing mileage by a lot, and you're getting little pains, maybe you're getting shin splints or something like that, going with a shoe like this really helps, and it helped me. I finished the project without any injuries, so thanks Altra. Now finally, to conclude this video, I want to share with you one thing I loved about the shoe and one thing I didn't really like so much. So what I really loved is this huge outsole. It's called the Vibram Mega Grip, and it looks like something that I've never seen before. I mean, look at the width of this here.
Just look at the length of this animal. Just enormous. And not just the length, it's massive girth.
And this all goes into the philosophy of this shoe, right? Sturdiness, cushion, comfort. But it's amazing if you're running on wobbly trails that are very uneven and you're looking for that stability. So on many of my trails, I was running on sandy trail. And when you run on sand, often you kind of, you dip in and you don't get really much grip. So you lose a lot of energy while you run. And this really helped, okay? And the same for snow or like mud. So if you're out there on a muddy trail or a snowy trail and you need more grip, go with the Olympus 5. It makes a big difference. What I didn't like so much is the weight. This shoe is heavier than any of the other shoes that I've ever worn. Of course, it makes sense. The more stuff you put on the shoe to make it sturdy, the heavier it gets. So it's no surprise. But yeah, it's a bit heavier and you can feel it. But overall, I think it's something that we can deal with because it has so many other qualities. Now, if you're wondering what the minimal index of your shoe is, make sure to comment down below and I will get back to you. Thanks for watching, stay wild, and see you in the next video.